Victory is here for the Colts. We got the job done. We defeated the 49ers on primetime television. The curse is non-existent. It doesn't exist. Most people thought that we were going to lose like we did against the Ravens on primetime when we sold the lead, but we didn't do it. I had doubts as well. I'm not going to lie. I admit it. I had doubts. I didn't think the Colts were going to pull it off, but we did. But we got a lot to talk about today, and I got my guy Lucas here with me tonight. How are you doing, Lucas?
You know what? I was very stressed. I was nervous for every single Achilles and ACL every single time everyone was stepping out on that field. But it was a great, great game for Colts fans. Not so much for fans of the 49ers or for referee fans, if there are any.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, going into this game, nobody was really sold on Jimmy G starting for the 49ers to go into this game, including this weather. No one was really, expecting them to go out there and make some noise. But I did say on a lot of preview videos that I was doing, I said that Debo Samuel was going to torch us. I already knew that was going to happen. So I wasn't surprised by his numbers. But I also said with him torching us that he will not be the key for the 49ers to win this game. And I was correct. He did all the damage that he can do, but it still wasn't enough to get the job done. So I knew what I was doing with that prediction. I predicted us to win by 10. And I mean, it was a little bit more than that. But hey, it is what it is at the end of the day. But let's go ahead and hop into the offense for the Indianapolis Colts. The offense, man, they had their spurts, and Lord have mercy, Michael Pittman Jr. did another highlight on prime time. If that doesn't push the Colts agenda to get more TV games, I don't know what does. But man, he had a big catch. Shout out to Mike Pittman Jr. Jonathan Taylor had himself a nice day. Let me get your thoughts on the offense, man, and how they looked.
Well, there was a lot of sloppiness throughout the game, but most of that can be attributed to playing in an absolute downpour. It was Super Bowl XLI vibes right there. There were botched snaps. There were dropped interceptions from both teams. There was like some floaters. There were some terrible, terrible spirals or lack thereof on throws. And there were some blown up screens on both sides where guys were just mostly focusing on catching the ball, let alone getting anything afterwards. So to say that this was the perfect game for the Colts offense would be misleading. But considering the circumstances around, it was a damn good game. The Colts emphasized running the damn ball, and Jonathan Taylor matched Elijah Mitchell perfectly. They both got exactly 18 carries, 107 yards, and a touchdown, which I've never seen identical running games like that, but Jonathan Taylor absolutely came in clutch for the Colts down the stretch. Michael Pittman Jr., like you were saying, was phenomenal down the stretch as well with that crucial game icing touchdown. Ooh, he was absolutely insane towards the end of that game with some really clutch possession plays. Mo Alley Cox had a nice red zone play to start the game to really get the Colts on the board. So there was some sloppiness, no doubt about it. But I think that can be relatively excused considering the inclement weather. And I really was impressed by what the Colts were able to do despite all of that.
Yeah, me too, man. It was a lot of gutsy plays. Just to also piggyback on what you were talking about, Carson Wentz interception that was claimed it got ruled as a fumble, so he still has only one interception so far this year. Carson Wentz, man, this dude is a daredevil. I say it every week, but I mean, he just keeps proving me right. Those big runs, he actually slid for the first. Nobody actually expected this with Carson Wentz. He just continues to prove the doubters wrong that he is here for the team, man. It's a totally different Carson Wentz. Air quotes from what people usually say out there in the agenda for the media. But Carson Wentz was, he was streaky out there doing some dumbfounded plays, but he still piggybacked off it after the defense was going out there making some stops. He still was looking like an average good quarterback for the Colts, man. QB1 Carson Wentz, man. Let me know your thoughts.
Well, like you were saying, that interception was called back as a forced fumble because they kind of tipped the ball as he was kind of trying to release it a bit. So thankfully, he now only has one interception on the year. And even if that was called an interception, he has yet to have a single interception on an overhand throw. It's only been the two shovel passes, if you will. So besides that, there was also a few plays early on where he was kind of misreading some of the routes, or he was kind of sailing it right into the hands of San Francisco defenders. And thankfully, they were dropping the ball because of the weather. But also, you could make the argument that he was only throwing it to them because he wasn't having enough zip, not enough speed on the ball because of the weather. So, potato, potato, you know? But ultimately, Carson Wentz was doing exactly what he needed to win the game when the game was on the line. He was rushing for those first downs and very scary fashion at it a little bit. One of those ones was a very, very impressive run where he got lit up right at the third down line, but he made it. I was just very impressed by him ultimately. Very gutsy play. He had a lot of like amnesia where, hey, he screwed up, forget about it, move on, get to the next play. And he was a lot more consistent from drive to drive than what you'd expect, considering some of these inconsistencies on the offense as a whole.
Yeah, man, I agree, dude. Carson Wentz, like I said, he's one of those guys. He's gonna make mistakes. He's not the perfect quarterback, but it's the fact that how he bounces back from those mistakes. It just makes me feel like, oh man, I'm comfortable with this guy because we know he's not perfect, but hey, it is what it is. He adjusted on the fly and got the job done. I mean, he found his guy, Michael Pittman Jr. The chemistry is there, and that's the only thing that really mattered with me is how are they going to connect, and they connected on these primetime games is at most like against the Ravens and against the 49ers. So as long as this chemistry is there, I'm pretty confident with this offense. Another thing, let's talk about this defense, man. This defense has stepped up big time today, really has. And Darius Leonard looked like the better linebacker in this debate that most people will go against with him and Fred Warner because Fred Warner was non-existent. I think Al Shaziz, if that's how you pronounce his name, had a way better game than Fred Warner. And I think I think he leads that team in tackles as well. Most 49ers fans will tell me about him, and he definitely made his presence felt today. But let me know your thoughts about how the Colts defense played today.
Well, the Colts defense, they had a few struggles here or there. There was sometimes like there was that one drive right in the third or fourth quarter where it only took the 49ers 3 plays to go 6 yards for a touchdown. Jimmy Garoppolo was absolutely diming on that drive, and we were really, really worried for a good second. But the pressure was not very consistent at times. Like there were times where there was absolutely no pressure on Jimmy G, and he was able to carve up the Colts secondary, which has been very banged up. However, when the pressure did get through, it made an impact. We saw Kwity Paye get a few really nice pressures. We saw Tyquan Lewis get one. One of Kwity Paye's pressures ended up getting into a Al-Quadin Muhammad sack and forced fumble. We had a DeForest Buckner sack at the last play of the game to kind of help inflate the numbers a little bit. But ultimately, when the defense needed plays, they stepped up. Darius Leonard had yet another punch-out forced fumble. The man is relentless with his fists. I swear. He is the best in the league right now at just punching that ball out. And it has been absolutely clutch for this defense. We've gotten some amazing turnovers that way. Heck, Xavier Rhodes. Let's talk about Xavier Rhodes for a second. He had a little bit of an injury right in like the pre-game warmups, and he was taken off the field, and everyone's like, oh crap, he's out for the game. It's going to be a long day for the Colts. He comes back. He plays the game, and he has a clutch interception that was almost a pick six. Just stepped out of bounds, but phenomenal play to rip the ball out of the receiver's hands. So got to give props to Xavier Rhodes where he earned it. He had a few plays where he got beat, but more than made up for it with that clutch interception in the fourth.
Absolutely agree, man. Xavier Rhodes has been quiet all year, has really struggled, but this game, even with the nagging injury, decided to make a big play at the end where we really needed it. And I think we could have had an even bigger play if Bobby Okereke would have caught that. Well, don't know how to pronounce his new name, even though he mispronounced it on the game as well, but it is what it is. But Bobby O, he could have caught a pick today too, but he wound up dropping it. I think a game could have been over way before that. And I think Sendejo filling in for Julian Blackman wasn't a big issue as we expected. I thought it would have been worse, but hey, it is what it is at the end of the day. So the defense did a pretty good job today. they overall, I think they won the game for us, in my opinion. The offense did what they did, but I think the defense stepped up big time against the 49ers because they were getting killed by the bootleg all game. And they made a few stops when we really needed it. So they get the praise that for the win, even though the offense made some plays, I think the defense really stepped up today. Um, Another play I would like to bring up is before we get up out of here is the safety, the punt that went into the back of the end zone. This game could have been a blowout, in my opinion, if that would have resulted in a safety because that would have carried momentum into it. Let me know your thoughts on that play, man.
I am not a rules expert when it comes to the NFL. I haven't sat down and read the entire NFL rule book, but every single person I have talked to, even the NBC announcers, they were saying that's a safety. He kicks the ball while it's not in the end zone into the end zone, picks it up, and then gets tackled in the end zone. That's a safety. Like, what kind of calls are they making on the field? And they also had a few ticky-tacky holding calls on the Colts, but they also helped us out with actually not having, they weren't completely blind this game. They were at least able to call some defensive pass interference calls that were absolutely blatant by the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, there were several deep bombs, some to Michael Pittman Jr., where they were just absolutely covering the face masks. They were grabbing all over the entire Colts receivers. Thankfully, the refs are not completely blind, but that one call was just absolutely devastating for our early game momentum. But hey, we won despite it, and it was a great game overall.
Yeah, man, it was a great game. Going into next week is definitely going to be an even bigger game because we're going to need that W, and they just beat up on those frauds that we like to call the Kansas City Chiefs. But we'll talk more about that into the future. But I appreciate you for joining us tonight, Lucas. Please let us know where they can find you.
Well, you can find me, per usual, at RobinsLucas on Twitter. You can also find me as the lead writer for thebluestable.com.
All right, that's where you can find them. You know where to find me. Gonna have some more TikToks dropping for you guys, including that big catch from Michael Pittman Jr. It will be on there, so feel free to follow me on TikTok. I'm on Instagram as well if you want to follow me in there. I barely post, but I am on there. But I appreciate everyone that tuned in tonight. Feel free to let me know your thoughts about the game in the comment section, and feel free to follow Lucas on Twitter and follow the website, The Blue Stable, for leading articles and all types of posts and blogs on that site as well. This is Marcus. This is Lucas. And until next time, you've been culture shocked.